My mom's birthday, my nephew crumpled my son's handmade card and threw it into the cake, saying, "Nobody likes his weird art," he said. The table burst out laughing. Later that night, my dad texted, "Maybe skip Christmas. You're bringing the mood down." I replied, "I also skip your mortgage permanently." By morning, I had 48 missed calls. My nephew called my son a freak at my mom's birthday dinner. He crumpled the card my son had made, a hand-painted one. Took him 2 days and shoved it right into the cake. Chocolate smeared across the drawing like it was part of the joke. Then he looked around the table and said, "Nobody likes his weirdo art." The table burst out laughing. And that was the part that burned. Not Ryan's words. Not the card or the cake, but the way the whole family by family just laughed. My sister actually clapped. Her husband slapped the table. My brother muttered something about my son being a sensitive little guy. And my dad, sitting at the head like a king who just witnessed the perfect punchline, smiled. Nobody looked at my son. Nobody saw him freeze. Not cry, just freeze like he'd shut something off inside him. I got up to follow him, but my dad raised his hand and said something about not causing a scene. I looked around the table and realized I was the only one who didn't find it funny. My mom had lit the candles by then and was trying to shift the mood back to cake and photos. I stood in the hallway just out of view and listened to them sing. My son never came back down. I didn't make him. When we got home, he went straight to bed without a word. Just curled up with his sketchbook, the one he carries everywhere. He didn't even ask for dinner. Around 10, my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. "Maybe skip Christmas. You're bringing the mood down." It didn't even surprise me. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. Ryan is his favorite. Always has been. Ever since he was 3 and repeated something from a beer commercial that made everyone laugh. My dad started calling him the star. And the rest of us, my son especially, were cast as extras in Ryan's little show. So, I replied, "I also skip your mortgage permanently. $3,000 a month." That's what I've been quietly sending for over a year and a half. When my dad lost his job and my mom's health issues got worse, I stepped in. My sister chipped in a couple hundred now and then, usually with complaints. My brother bailed entirely, but I'd been covering the mortgage, groceries, utilities, the whole thing. They never thanked me. Never asked me how I was managing it as a single mom. Never asked if I needed anything. It was just understood. Katie handles it. Katie fixes things. But that night, standing in my kitchen staring at that text, "You're bringing the mood down," something in me snapped. I turned off my phone and went to bed. When I woke up, I had 48 missed calls. 16 from my dad, 9 from my sister, a few from my mom. Even my brother had called, probably because he was afraid I was going to ask him to help. I didn't call anyone back. By the end of the day, the group chat was flooded with vague, guilt-tripping messages. Things like, "We're all tired and don't make this about money," and "Ryan's just a kid, Katie." Not one of them apologized to my son. Not one of them asked how he was. And that's when I realized what I had to do. Not just about the money, about all of it. About how I'd been treated like a utility. Useful, quiet, expected. While they fawned over Ryan, let him say whatever he wanted, and turn my son into a punchline. Wasn't going to be like that anymore. Not for me, and definitely not for my kid. The first time I realized how deep it went, Ryan had just turned 5. He threw a hard plastic dinosaur at my son's face and split his lip open. My son was 3. He started crying, and Ryan laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. My sister barely reacted. My dad chuckled and said, "Boys will be boys." That line followed Ryan everywhere like a permission slip. When he erased a drawing my son had worked on for hours and replaced it with a stick figure vomiting, they called it a prank. When he hid my son's stuffed fox and made him cry before bedtime at a family cabin trip, my mom said maybe he should stop bringing baby toys around. When he made a TikTok mocking my son's speech, he had a list for a while and it got over 200 likes. My dad shared it on Facebook with 3 laughing emojis. But somehow I was always the one ruining the mood. I was too sensitive, too reactive. I needed to relax, lighten up, take a joke. My sister would say, "Ryan teases because he likes him." My dad would nod like it was a fact. I would tell them he wasn't teasing, he was bullying, and they just changed the subject or leave the room. After what happened at the birthday, I didn't expect an apology, but part of me still hoped someone might at least check in on my son just to ask if he was okay. No one did. Instead, they flooded the group chat with blurry pictures of candles and cake. Like the rest of the night had gone off without a hitch. Like my son disappearing after being humiliated was a minor hiccup. My mom even posted a photo online with the caption, "Family is everything." I didn't comment. That Sunday, my son told me he didn't want to go to art class anymore. He said, "I think it's stupid now, like everyone else thinks." I told him that wasn't true, but he just shrugged and went back to drawing alone in his room. That one cut deeper than anything they said to me. He'd always loved art like other kids love video games. It was the one place he felt proud, and they'd taken that from him. Over a cake, over a birthday card he poured his whole heart into. When I stopped the mortgage payments, I expected silence from them for at least a few days. I figured they'd need time to process that their backup plan was gone. Instead, it took less than 12 hours. My mom called first. She didn't ask how we were. She didn't mention the card or the cake. She simply said she'd noticed the mortgage hadn't gone through and wanted to make sure it was just a mistake. I told her it wasn't. She paused and said, "But that's your father's house." I replied, "And that's my son you all laughed at." She went quiet. Then she asked, "So what are we supposed to do now?" That's when it hit me. They hadn't just gotten used to me helping, they believed I owed them. Somehow, my quiet support had become part of the family infrastructure. Like the house paid for itself and I was just a detail, not a person, not a daughter. I told her to ask Ryan. He seemed to be in charge now. She hung up. By Thursday, emails from the mortgage company started coming in, past due notices, automated warnings. I wasn't on the deed, but the account was still linked to my name. My dad left 2 voicemails pretending to be calm, asking if I wanted to come over and talk. When I didn't answer, the messages turned into long rants about disrespect, about family loyalty, about how dare you. Then on Friday, I got one final text from him. "You're really going to do this to us over a kid being a little too honest." That I didn't respond, because it wasn't about the kid. Not anymore. It was about the years they let him tear my son apart like it was a sport. The silence after every incident. The way they protected him like a crown jewel while treating my son like collateral damage. It was about the long pattern of choosing one child over another and expecting the rest of us to just accept it. They made it clear who their favorite was. Now they were about to learn what it felt like to be the one left out. By the time the second mortgage payment failed, I had already removed my name from the autopay system. They didn't realize it right away. They were used to the money just showing up, the house staying warm, the lights always on, the fridge never empty. My silence was probably assumed to be my usual quiet compliance. But this time was different. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I had stopped expecting change. I was just watching. On the 5th day, the calls escalated. First my dad, then my sister, then my mom. Then they started calling from my niece's phone, my aunt's number, even a restricted line. I ignored them all. I didn't block anyone. I wanted them to know I was seeing their names and choosing not to answer. That silence could be intentional too. My brother, who hadn't paid a cent toward the house in 2 years and only ever texted me about fantasy football, sent me this. "You're seriously doing this? Just let it go already. Ryan's a kid. You're the adult." I didn't reply, but I saved the message in case I ever forgot how completely none of them understood. They thought this was about the birthday. They still didn't realize that moment with the cake and the card wasn't the beginning. It was the end. The final straw after years of watching my son be left out, talked down to, mocked, erased. Years of my father encouraging that dynamic, propping Ryan up like an heir to a throne no one asked for, while treating my son like a fragile ornament no one knew what to do with. And now, they were losing the throne. The group chat I'd muted weeks ago lit up again. My sister posted a photo of Ryan vacuuming. Caption, "Some kids just take initiative." Someone responded with clapping emojis. Then my mom added one of her signature passive-aggressive memory bombs, a photo of all of us at the beach when I was maybe 10, sunburned and smiling. "We used to be so close," she wrote. I didn't open the chat. My friend sent me a screenshot instead. She knew everything. She was also the one who said it first. "You know you can take the car back, right? It's still in your name." I had almost forgotten. It was my old Honda, the one I gave them when their minivan died. They treated it like a gift, but it was never meant to be permanent. I paid the registration, the insurance, the maintenance. It was easier than listening to them fall apart again. At the time, I told myself I was doing it for my mom, keeping things stable. Now I saw it for what it was, another thing they used because they assumed I'd never say no. So I didn't announce anything. I checked the GPS tracker, confirmed the car was still in their driveway, and called a towing company. I asked how soon they could pick up a vehicle I owned. They said by the end of the day. The next morning, the car was gone. By noon, my mom had called 12 times. My dad texted, "Did you seriously just repossess the car? Are you insane?" I didn't answer. That afternoon, my mom left a voicemail. "No hello. Just, we're trying to stay afloat here, Katie. You're making everything harder. We've done so much for you." That line stayed with me. We've done so much for you. I sat with it and tried to list what they'd actually done for me in the last 10 years. It was short. The list of what I'd done for them was much longer than I wanted to admit. The groceries, the vet bill when their dog needed surgery, roof repairs after the storm, 2 years of driving my mom to appointments while working full-time and raising my son alone, the holidays I hosted, the ones I paid for, the things I gave up so they wouldn't lose their house, and none of it bought my child even basic respect. That weekend, I organized files and removed myself from every financial connection tying me to their lives. No more co-signed accounts. No more backups. No more safety nets. If they called the bank now, there would be no one left to hand them over to, and they had no idea how much I'd already unhooked that on Sunday night. I took my son out to dinner, just the two of us. He brought his sketchbook and showed me a drawing of a waiter carrying 3 trays. "I'm practicing people now," he said. When I asked why, he replied, "Because someday I want to draw the whole world, and I don't want to leave anyone out." In that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice, no matter who never understood or forgave me. The surprise came that Wednesday in an envelope with my name written in my mother's handwriting. Inside wasn't a letter or apology, it was an updated will. I had been removed completely. My sister, brother, and Ryan were listed. My son and I were not. The note cited estrangement and disrespect. The same day, my sister posted a photo of Ryan with my dad, captioned, "Legacy in the making." I didn't cry. I felt a strange calm. That night, I called a lawyer, not to fight the will, but to protect my son and myself. Trusts, power of attorney, everything airtight. No one was taking from him again. 2 days later, a GPS alert showed the car I'd reclaimed had moved. My dad still had a spare key. He'd taken it. I reported it stolen. When police asked if I wanted to press charges, I said yes, because boundaries only exist if they're enforced. They recovered the car within 24 hours. The messages flooded in. Begging, anger, guilt. Then Ryan sent a short voice note saying I was overdramatic and that maybe none of this would have happened if my kid wasn't so weird. That told me everything. I forwarded it to the officer. I sent one final message in the family chat. "You can keep your legacy. From now on, build it without my money, my help, or my name." Then I blocked everyone. The house grew quiet. My son was peaceful. It didn't feel like losing a family. It felt like leaving a burning house. 2 weeks later, I discovered one last tie. While refinancing my mortgage, a credit check revealed a joint card I'd co-signed for my dad years ago. I thought it was dormant. It wasn't. The balance was over $6,400. Restaurants, online shopping, casino trips, hotels, and that's when I realized, even in silence, they were still trying to take 0.1 charge on the credit card. Simply read Ryan's grad suite. Graduation, he was 13. I called the credit company the next morning and reported the charges as unauthorized. Because my name was still on the account and there was a long history of shared use, I was legally liable. My choices were simple: pay or prove fraud. So I hired a lawyer. What we found was worse than I expected. 2 utility bills opened in my name and still active at their house. A hospital bill from 2 years earlier where my mom had used my insurance for a routine visit to avoid a copay. And most serious of all, a refinance application from 4 months prior where they'd listed my income to inflate theirs. My lawyer said it bordered on financial misrepresentation. That I sent cease and desist letters, locked my credit, canceled access, and severed every financial tie. That week, my mom showed up unannounced with a box of old photos, speaking calmly like she always did when she was lying. I didn't let her in. Inside the box, along with memories, was a letter from my dad accusing me of abandoning them and insisting I'd come crawling back. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't bending anymore. I was done. The next day, I revoked every remaining legal connection. The cleanup would take months, my lawyer said. I told him I had time and peace. Then Ryan sent a video. He was burning the photos in my parents' fireplace, staring into the camera. I watched once and forwarded it to my lawyer. This wasn't dysfunction anymore. It was cruelty. 3 months later, my mom left a voicemail asking for help. I deleted it. The refinance had failed. They couldn't afford the house without my money. Utilities were overdue. The car my dad tried to steal had been officially repossessed. I stayed silent and let the system they relied on turn against them. They tried guilt next, then shame, then pretending it was about family. I didn't respond. They had watched my son be mocked, excluded, and diminished for years, and when I set boundaries, they made me the villain. Eventually, my dad sent one last note. We're selling the house. Hope you're satisfied. I threw it away. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't have to anymore. My son's art covers our kitchen walls now. He draws people again. Last week, he gave me a card with 2 owls and wrote, "Some people leave. Some people stay. I'm glad you stayed. Oh no, I won't help them. Not now. Not ever." They built a family around a favorite and expected the rest of us to orbit quietly. I stopped revolving, and I'm never going back.